Stacy Rothgeb, MBA student at the University of Denver. For this, my last session review, I'm going to go rogue a little bit and I'm going to talk more about some big picture learnings that I took away from South by Southwest. I think one of the things that has been let me back up. It's like I took this class and was very interested in it because as someone who is mid-career, I'm an engineer, technical by nature, working on an MBA. I'm pretty set in my opinions of the world. I've been around long enough that I think I know what's going on. And I wanted to be involved in this because I was looking to upset what I accepted as true and look for new ideas that had never occurred to me. And I think this has been a very successful experience in doing that. I'm also going to talk a little bit like the class. And like one thing I will give feedback on is I had done an immersion with Professor Myers around the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I really am very appreciative of that experience because I think it gave me enough of a hint of some of the things that I keep hearing about during this experience that if I hadn't had that exposure beforehand, it wouldn't have been as impactful. And so there's a lot of things on the tech side that I wasn't as familiar with, like chat GPT and really understanding what is meant by the metaverse and, some of the, visualization technologies that are out there, but just basically like how I'm going to get it all wrong, how AI and big data is making such an impact. And, I had a different perspective because we use artificial intelligence quite a bit in buildings technology and in modeling and things of that nature, but the application I'm seeing here is quite different. So having that foundation was really helpful for me to kind of open up my mind about what I was going to see, learn, and experience while here. Another big takeaway is how much there is a connection between the climate and entrepreneurship, and I think in clean tech. And because for me, at least that's my perspective, this is a big, hard problem, and probably one of the biggest, hardest problems we're going to have to face is climate change and how we kind of get ourselves back in track. And there is a big tech component to that. I think there's a behavioral component too, which I'd like to see more discussion of, but seeing this tech component and how the next generation of businesses are addressing it has been really interesting. I kind of am leaving this conference with a feeling of I'm not doing enough, which is great. That's motivational for me, that I need to reset and think about where impact really lies. This is a big takeaway out of my whole MBA experience, is that I need to be more strategy focused than execution focused. So this reinforces that as much. Another thing I've really liked about this conference is that it was predominantly panels without slides. And I think as someone who has now become a very avid podcast listener and watches pretty much no TV and hasn't gone to conferences for a few years, I now realize how I much prefer that. I find the slides distracting, and I actually, in taking notes, I many times intentionally took my attention away from the slide so that I was really listening to what was being said. So that's it will influence how I present going forward. At first I was very critical of a lot of observing, maybe critical is too strong. I was very observing a lot of the execution of the conference. And I was like, oh, that's not what I'm here. I'm here for the content. But then the realization that is why I'm here too. Going back to school to get an MBA as a technical person, it was so I could execute better in that leading of people and programs. And I do spend a lot of time hosting conferences, competitions, meetings, group workshops and collaboration. And so it was very appropriate for me to look how well the facilitators and everyone engaged with who was in the audience, and the presenters, how they were able to pivot. Because if your message is not heard because you lose the audience, then you're just wasting your time. So a lot of great. It was well executed overall. There's a couple things I would improve, but great experience there. And I would say in closing, one other thing I will say that I learned more from the class and than from the conference itself is that, I really liked how the South by Southwest class was set up to teach maybe some of the undergrad students how to use a conference to their benefit and how to network and how to prepare. And I've actually used those learnings to kind of craft a better approach to mentoring young staff that I have in how to optimize that time. And I think it's even more than young staff, because even some of my more mid-career and senior staff were getting back into conferences after the pandemic, and I think we all need a refresher. So it was very timely, and it was one of those things that I think if I hadn't viewed the class the way I did, I wouldn't have identified this need in time to be useful as we get into our summer conference season. Overall, I think it's been a great experience. I did this as my final class as kind of a again, to break out of what my norms were and what I normally think about things, and I feel like I was very successful. So thank you very much.